Say it one more time. Say it.
Oh yeah! How sweet it is! The fruits of victory! Oh yeah!
What a team!
What a team!
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Your Honor.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the RTD Sports Podcast. I'm Matt Kiewit, and I'm joined as always by Savannah Rieger, and Zach Joachim is back from vacation. Zach, how was the Wild West?
It's great to be back, friends. Thank you for holding down the fort while I was gone. I went on a week-long vacation to Colorado with my girlfriend. It was wonderful. I have some friends from high school who live in Denver, so we stayed with them for a few days. Went to Rocky Mountain National Park, rented a car, drove all around the Rockies, spent a day in Colorado Springs, and went to Garden of the Gods, which was probably my favorite destination of the whole trip. Went to Red Rocks while we were in Denver, and it was wonderful. Somehow I escaped the wildfires, or at least the wildfire smoke, because it looked like Richmond was pretty bad for that Friday in terms of all the haze here, and the air was pretty clear in Colorado, although we did drive past the Aspen wildfires when we were coming back up toward Colorado Springs. Which was sad and which was visually striking to see them right in front of you and, you know, smoke rising from a mountainside. But we went by a bunch of 14,000 foot peaks, Long's Peak, Mount Blanca among them. So I had seen the Rocky Mountains before, but never really traversed them like that. We didn't find any bighorn sheep, though. This is the big regret of the journey. We went chasing bighorn sheep on the last day. But we're outside of like the heart of their migratory season when they're easier to see. So didn't find them, but we saw a moose in Rocky Mountain National Park, which was really cool, and a bunch of elk and
Beautiful. Yeah, I don't know the bighorn sheep's migratory patterns. I imagine that I guess they migrate through Montana this time of year because on trips to Glacier, they are pretty abundant in Glacier National Park this time of year. So I guess they're up closer to Canada at this point.
we found that their mating season was November and December, which is when they're much easier to see in the Colorado area, but especially because like it was super hot in Colorado for that week. Like we had 90 reaching 100-degree days a little bit, and we found that they're up near the really high altitudes during those days. So we didn't, we went up at Rocky Mountain State Park, we went up to a 12,000 foot plus elevation point, which is the highest in the park. But we didn't climb any of the huge peaks, so we didn't see any of the sheep, which was disappointing. But we did go to, I'm wearing a Great Sand Dunes shirt. If you've ever heard of Great Sand Dunes National Park, it's gorgeous. It is exactly what it sounds like. It looks like you're in the desert, like for a while, because it's a spot like in the San Luis Valley of the Rocky Mountains where a bunch of sand accumulates. And so we did that hike. And even though it was only like a 3-mile round trip hike, that was maybe the hardest hike I've done of my life, because you're trekking up massive sand dunes. And we went in the afternoon and it was hot. But that was a gorgeous experience. We stayed at a spa called Joyful Journey, which was cool, which is like a meditation place. That Maggie booked that part of the trip. I was very excited about it though. We went on a meditative walk through a labyrinth and soaked in some hot springs and stuff. So that's a little bit about my trip to Colorado. It was a great time. We went to Red Rocks too, and to Meow Wolf in Denver, which is like an immersive art installation experience. So wonderful time.
Outstanding. We got a fun show for you guys. Zach, Savannah, and I will go through a common question we get at this time of year about RTD sports coverage. Then we're going to kick it to an interview with our good friend in Charlottesville, Greg Madia, where he and I will talk about University of Virginia football. And they have quite a lofty expectations to live up to this season. And then we'll take it home with some quick hits and trending topics. But first, it's all Metro season. You can see those teams at richmond.com and in print editions of the Richmond Times-Dispatch. And as we roll out the last few of these, we have been getting the question that we get pretty much every year. And so we're going to address it now. How do we select the teams? It's at times could be maybe more art than science, but We're going to start off. We do start off with a baseline and some non-negotiables to actually create a list of who is eligible. And so, one of you can feel free to take it away. What do these players have to do in order for us to consider them?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like with All Metro, for the committee, it feels like everybody has different opinions on a lot of stuff. I know Zach and I quarrel about things all the time when it comes to All Metro.
2023 All Metro Softball Player of the Year.
2024.
2024. That one's the Matt hates that argument. That's the recurring one. But some of them last years they do. It's difficult calls. This one has.
But we look at, did you play in the VHSL or in the VISAA? You gotta attend one of those schools at the very minimum and play sports for those schools at the very, very minimum. And it might feel a little repetitive, like, oh, of course you have to go to a high school to be eligible for the high school All Metro team, but it's actually a little more complicated than that.
More and more these days, it's becoming a thing.
Yeah, we have academies everywhere popping up left and right, not just in Richmond, but across the state of Virginia, across the country, and the conversation in the recent months here has been, do we account for those academy kids? But, at the end of the day, what we've kind of decided is you got to go to a VHSL or VISA school. You got to play a big local schedules. And, for the most part, and for most sports, it is based on how you did in your high school season.
We've struggled with the academies as sports academies pop up everywhere for the last few years and trying to navigate how to include those in All Metro. I got a lot of questions about Dominion Sports Collective this year for the All Metro baseball team. There's a lot of phenomenal players, some of the best in the area who compete there, but they're not in the VISAA or the VHSL. They're not competing for state playoffs and they're not playing local teams. S3, right, Savannah, I know you had to navigate from a basketball perspective. It took us a few years to figure out how to handle Life Christian football there, which is easier now because they're in the VISAA, but they didn't used to be. And they were playing, a national travel schedule, essentially. And so there's some gray area there, but for the most part, you got to be in the VHSL or VISAA and eligible for state playoffs and play a local schedule in order to make the All Metro team.
If you opt out of attending high school, I am not one to judge. You probably have lofty athletics goals, and I hope you reach them. But if you're opting out of attending high school, you're opting out of high school sports coverage. I'm sorry to say.
We have so many schools. We have over 50, and that's just schools. That's not accounting for every single sport that has over 50 schools, and it's almost impossible for us to keep up with that and the academies. So, we have to draw a line somewhere, and that's the line for the most part.
And it can be difficult to navigate with individual sports, right? Swimming has always been an anomaly and a unique case because, Quest, Poseidon, Nova, like the top swimmers in the area are doing their best work competitively for those clubs. And for the most part, they're just doing high school competition for fun and to be part of a team. And so we've always taken into account some of those national accomplishments, outside a high school pool. And track and field is another unique one that we had to navigate a little bit this year, just about where do you draw the line when the season ends. And we cut that after the conclusion of high school seasons this year. And so there's some gray area there with the individual sports and the club competition that happens outside of them when you're not representing your high school. But those are anomalies and unique circumstances, not really applicable to the team sports.
And we are willing to adapt, as Zach has pointed out. Like with high school swimming, it got to a point where we had to take a look at where things were, and it was like, okay, in order to fill out this team and make it like a real team, we had to start including club times because again, as Zach said, kids were just kind of competing with their high school team for fun, and their focus and energy and overall effort for getting personal bests and things like that was geared toward club swimming. there are other sports like, cross country and track and field where who knows, maybe one day we will have to take a step back and say, okay, maybe AAU or whatever outside of high school is what we need to really be looking at here. But for right now, I think we still do have a really good picture about who the best kids are in the area just by looking at the high school season with those sports. Wouldn't you guys agree?
I would agree with that, yeah.
For sure. And when we were discussing the contrast between those two in particular, like the track and field athletes are applying themselves more in high school competition than the swimmers are, right? So many of the swimming PRs, when they're pacing their training and trying to be at their best is catered to club competition. Whereas you see a lot more of the top athletes in track and field showing that level in high school competition, right? So again,
you literally hear about swimmers tapering their training, which is, they want to be at their peak for whatever meet they want to be at their peak for, and that's very often not a high school meet. In any case, and then another baseline, you got to play a majority of the season. We want someone who's played almost the whole season or ideally the entire season. Injuries happen, yes, and that sucks. But at any level of sports, you are penalized for missing competition.
Yeah, and I mean, it just depends on the sport with that one too. 6 games in football is different from 6 games in softball or girls lacrosse, obviously. So, we do look for that for the majority of that, but at the same time, if you miss 5 or 6 games in like a girls lacrosse season, but you come back and you're still playing like a first team All Metro player, you're going to be first team All Metro. We want to make sure the teams reflect the A4's best, and that's the way we do it.
Caleb Williams from Matoaka, football was always an example that came up to me in that regard a couple years ago here. He was an incredible defensive lineman for them who was the All-Metro Defensive Player of the Year, and then the next season wasn't on the team because he missed 6 games that year. And like Savannah said, in a football season, 6 games is a ton, right? I mean, depending on playoffs, it could be more than half of the season. So talent-wise, he was certainly a first-team All-Metro player, but there's a line at which you miss too much of the season. And also playoffs and how you come up big for your team in clutch spots can play a big role. We talked about that yesterday with the All-Metro softball team, right? Bringing up the specific example, Savannah Wright for Matoaka, who had, remind me, the rally in the state championship game. She started it, scored the tying run, had a 3-run bomb in the state semifinal, right?
Yeah, so in the state, so there's 3 games. You got to win 3 games in the state tournament to win the state title for softball. In the state quarterfinals, she hit the walk-off bottom of the 7th game-winning RBI single. In the semifinals, she hit the 3-run home run to secure that Matoaka was going to win that game. And in the final, she started the rally and plated the game-tying run against Light Ridge in the 7th, and Matoaka eventually walked it off. That is, in softball, some pretty significant playoff success, I would say, for an individial.
And it wasn't like she was a slouch during the regular season either.
No,
She hit almost 400. She just
Yeah.
she didn't have one of those crazy like 450 or 520 batting averages that some kids have. But I mean, she almost hit 400. So I mean, it was. I would say it wasn't too big of a stretch, or I would say it was not a stretch at all. But even just by her regular season stats, I would say it wasn't too big of a stretch.
No, not. She was in our Sports Backers All-Stars program this year, and to get into that program, you have to be really good academically and athletically, and there's a reason she was in that program. She soared on both fronts, and so she was a great player, but just elevated her game to a whole new level when her team needed her. And, Zach and I both have very different reasons to how we pick All-Metro sometimes. We argue more than we probably should at work when we have to pick things, but, I think that really helps it in the end of the day, because by the time these teams publish, we feel pretty good about them. We've talked about every possible angle that you could have ever imagined for an All-Metro team. And, at the end of the day, that makes the product so much better.
Debate is really healthy to hash out the methodology here, because at the end of the day, to a degree, it's subjective, and everyone's going to have, a different things that they weigh more than others, depending on all Metro. But as long as you're able to, like we were talking about yesterday, be able to defend your stance, and have a concrete argument as to why you felt like this player deserved it, then I think it's not foolproof, but your reasoning is going to be sound. And obviously all state and all region too factors into it. That's kind of the baseline a lot of the times for when we're putting together teams is, if you're first team all state or second team, or if you're on the all region team, then we'll try and get you some kind of recognition, even if that's just honorable mention. And we hear coaches talk a lot about the politics that goes into all region meetings. And we've had plenty of coaches complain about how that voting went. So we don't want it to be the sole driving force and reasoning behind our selections, but we certainly take it into account.
We account for region players of the year too. That was something that came up a lot in the winter this year as well, was, why is this player on this team region players of the year counts. It's not easy to win that award either. So we look at that as well, and we like to have our teams reflect every school as much as we can, not just like one or two that might be really, really high up. And so we do look at that and account for that.
You're always trying to find balance in classifications and competitive level too, which is difficult, and that goes back to that softball discussion that we talked about from a couple years ago, right? That it's tough finding that balance between, look, obviously this team is in a lower classification, played a weaker schedule, and you want to take that into account, but you also don't want to, if they went and won a state title like a New Kent in Class 3 or a King William in Class 2, then you don't want to just totally knock them down because they play in a lower classification, than a Douglas Freeman or a Cosby. So you're always trying to find that balance too.
And sometimes it's easier to pick them than others. This year with softball with Kaylee Hodges, that was probably one of the easiest picks I've had to make in my time here at the Times-Dispatch, between just individual talent and postseason success. But there are times it is not easy when we select a player of the year. Not at all. And, it can go either way. I just think that speaks to the volumes of talent in the area.
There are some difficult quirks when the seasons and the schedule is changed up too, like with VISAA, right? Like I'm trying to finish soccer right now, and boys soccer playing in the fall, tennis as well, which I put together this year. Girls tennis for the VISAA is in the fall, whereas boys is in the spring. And so when your seasons are spread out like that, it gets kind of difficult too. Like we had all Metro players of the year for both of those sports that were competing back in the fall of this past year. And so you kind of have to be malleable with your methodology a little bit, because the sports can be so different in terms of how the seasons are scheduled and laid out.
Golf is also really tough. Golf is actually one of the harder all-Metro teams I have to put together because of the private schools playing in different parts of the year. And sometimes we're looking at spring from last year and the fall of this year. It can get crazy.
Well, unless you guys got anything else, any loose ends to tie up, hopefully that made sense to everyone. If you got any questions, we're happy to answer them. RTD Sports Podcast at timesdispatch.com. Drop us a line. We will read your question on the show. I promise, if it's appropriate. And right now, we are going to kick it to an interview with our friend Greg Madia. He is the University of Virginia beat writer at the Charlottesville Daily Progress. It was a really good interview. Some technical difficulties. I hope you stick with it. Greg's audio got a little garbled in some places, but he does drop a few nuggets that you are able to hear throughout the interview. And without further ado, let's kick it to Greg. Welcome back to the RTD Sports Podcast. I'm joined here by University of Virginia beat writer Greg Madia. He's got a pretty gargantuan beat covering pretty much all of University of Virginia sports, but if I had to pick just one that he's really, really dialed in on, it would be football. And so, Greg, welcome to the show. Would you mind telling the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Matt, happy to do it. Happy to be here with you. Yeah, I've been covering Virginia since midway through the 21 season. I've been here throughout Tony Elliott's tenure. So I've seen it all from that first 2022 season through this past fall's really breakout year for Tony Elliott and the Who's. All right, 11-3 last year and looking to build upon it. So excited for this fall to see if Virginia can keep on the ascent, basically.
Indeed, and you guys, and along with a couple of chaps from the Roanoke Times, were down in Charlotte for ACC kickoff, and it was kind of I guess a kickoff to the season in a way. You got to see some players, talk to the coaches, kind of get an early feel for how things are going. I'll start you off with the softball first. I guess with Virginia's worst kept secret, they officially announced their QB1, did they not?
Yeah, right. It was last Wednesday morning that Virginia was in Charlotte for its appearance at ACC Media Days, a 3-day event. But yeah, within I guess the first 10 minutes of my one-on-one conversation with Tony Elliott, he tells me, yeah, Pribula's the guy. And if you followed my reporting, basically since Virginia signed both Pribula, the Missouri transfer, and Eli Holstein, the Pitt transfer, all along my sources were telling me that it was likely Bo Pribula was going to be quarterback, the starting quarterback, and Holstein was signed to be the backup. And that was kind of the plan all along, and it's how it played out. I think Matt, I thought this was interesting from my talk with Tony Elliott. He said he learned from a couple of years ago, right? In 2024, UVA had this long, drawn-out quarterback competition between Anthony Calandria, who's now at Nebraska, and Tony Muskett, the veteran who had come in from Monmouth. It played out all summer, into deep into training camp. I think it was only a week before the first game that he had made a decision to start Calandria, which at the time I thought was the right decision. But he said he learned that you got to kind of give, especially in the portal era, right? Players are so transient. You have new faces in and out. You have to give your team and your locker room a sense of direction if you're going to go a particular way anyway. So he felt with Pribula he was kind of the clear-cut guy. So made the call earlier in the summer, told the team about it, and they've been able to rally around him. So Pribula is the starting quarterback. Very similar feel to how last year was when they brought in Chandler Morris and Daniel Kalen. Morris, right, head and shoulders above the competition there with Kalen, who coincidentally is also at Nebraska now as the backup to Calandria there. That's kind of fun. But to me, I thought it just, part of Tony continuing to grow and figure himself out as a head coach was this ability to see that really worked well for Virginia last year with Morris. No need to have a long drawn out battle if you know who it is. So let the team figure out and gain some continuity with their quarterback and let the quarterback lead. And I think with as many leaders as Virginia lost off last year's team, Morris, Sage Ennis, Jameer Carter, Antonio Clary, James Jackson, you need some voices to step up, and Pribula is certainly going to be counted on for leadership between, all the experience in his career. 3 years at Penn State, last year at Mizzou, and he walks into Virginia with a voice.
Indeed, and appreciate you giving some background to Pribula there. There's so much turnover these days. It's hard to remember everywhere these guys have been. He was one of the more sought-after portal QBs, right?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it's interesting he didn't end up in Blacksburg with his former head coach who was at Penn State, and James Franklin. And I'd seen Franklin at Media Day and asked him, and he said, he still loves Pribula. Was disappointed in the 24 college football playoff when Pribula had to hit the portal because of the way the timing was, and Penn State was still going in the postseason. Was kind of heartbroken by that, but loves the kid, loves the family, loves the ability to run and throw, because he was kind of a package player for Penn State, right? Was not their starting quarterback. That was Drew Aller, but was used in different packages because he's got this unique run ability. And I think the way he played at Missouri last year, and showing that he's up to play against top competition down in the SEC. He was definitely wanted. There was a coordinator change at Mizzou, and I think he wants to throw the ball a little bit more. I think Virginia will still be a run first team, but I think you'll see him throw it more than he did at Mizzou last year.
Sounds good. And then a little bit more of a surprise, I guess. I believe early on the first day of kickoff, we learned that Cam Robinson, Virginia's standout linebacker, is targeting a week 0 return here against NC State.
Yeah, Matt, that's quite the quick recovery. Right, had the ACL injury late in the 25 season, mid-November against Duke in the regular season. When he was on the field last year, I mean, gosh, he was an impact player, undoubtedly, undeniably, with what he did. I mean, the pick 6 against Cal to seal the victory, the game-winning safety against Washington State. It was one week after another, kind of throughout the middle of Virginia's season, where Cam Robinson was just really single-handedly winning them games. It was wild. But the recovery's going well. He's probably a little bit ahead of schedule. But the target is week 0 based on what he's doing so far. He told me he started cutting side to side, is able to do that recently. He's been working out with the team since May, a full participant in summer off-season conditioning drills. There are a few more boxes to check, is what Tony Elliott had said, in terms of the recovery and being cleared to play. But if all goes well, yeah, when they tee it up week 0 against NC State on August 29th, he'll be out there. Now, I'm sure there'll be some kind of a pitch count with reps. I'm sure that's the case, right? You're not going to let him play every single snap, and Virginia's got some other linebackers they can use to make sure he doesn't exert over energy in the first one. But if he's out there in any capacity, that's a big deal for UVA.
No doubt. He really felt like the heart and soul of that defense. You mentioned some of those big splash plays he had. Just any time he was able to make an impact on defense, it really felt like it swung the game, and guys rallied behind that.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Now he was an incredible player. I mean, just some natural instincts. When it was funny, like we were kind of rehashing the Cal interception last week when he had the pick 6. It was like less than a minute to go. Virginia was up, so he could have took a knee upon picking off the ball. But he said as soon as Jaron Kiawe Sagapolatelli, the Cal quarterback, threw the ball, he knew, like based on where he was on the field, how the field had spread out, that he could score. I mean, and that just shows you that he's got some ability to have a feel for the game. And one thing that shouldn't be lost is Mike Adams, the linebackers coach. I remember a spring conversation I had with him. He said Cam really did a good job last year of playing within the defense too. So he's not just running free and escaping the scheme. He's playing within the scheme, and then when there's a play to be made, yeah, he's letting those instincts take over and go make a play. So I think he's due for an incredible senior year as long as he stays healthy.
Indeed, and if he is able to stay healthy, him and his teammates seem to have some expectations for the first time in a while. I guess there were expectations heading into last year, but nothing like this year. I think last year was more like, well, it's now or never for UVA. They've invested all these resources into the team. Let's see if they can do it. And now they've kind of done it. And now it's, well, can they do it again?
Yeah, last year they were picked 14th in the ACC preseason poll a year ago. But still, I mean, within the program there were expectations to be better than they had been. They still had to show it. There was more talent, but you have to do it on the field. And 11 wins, an appearance in the ACC championship game, and a Gator Bowl victory kind of showed Virginia spent its money pretty well last year. was able to take a step. This year, though, it's can you repeat, right? Can you continue to build upon last season's success, and so that last year isn't a one-off, right? A one-off fluke good year. You want to have some sustained uh, positive seasons, and keep giving yourself a chance to get in the college football playoff. And that's something I asked Tony about too. Is like, is the team good enough? And he says the roster is, and it's probably a better roster, at least to some degree, than they had last season, which is pretty incredible. So to me, I think Virginia's got a real chance to not only contend in the ACC, because if you do that and you can compete for a spot in Charlotte, then then you'll be in it. Then you'll have a chance to maybe make the playoff.
No doubt. It seems like Elliott does have a vision, and it's one that makes sense to me. It appears there's definitely an onus on building out, starting in the trenches and building out. And specifically without that offensive line, you lose Jamari Taylor, their star running back last year, but the people inside the Cavaliers building don't really sound too worried because of what they think this offensive line is going to be.
No, I mean I think the group just raises the floor, Matt. Like, you look at the 5 projected starters. It's over 11,000 career snaps. It's like 164 career starts. That's between Boley, Josie, Metcalf, McKeelan Thomas, and Monroe Mills. Josie and Boley on the left side of the O line. This is their 4th straight year playing together. So Virginia spent its money in retention with the O line, because you can't just go out and create real real cohesion across the front, right? You have to have that in house, and it's built over time. And I think with Virginia bringing back the 3 starters from last year, plus in Boley, Josie, Metcalf, and then the 2 guys who were hurt last year and who were supposed to be part of the equation, and McKeelan Thomas, a transfer from Arkansas State, and Monroe Mills, a transfer from Louisville. They felt like those guys could contribute this coming season. So to me, I think the group is going to be very strong. They're going to be able to run the football, and I think that those 5 give them the chance to control the pace of play, control the speed of the game and the clock. So if they're in a worst case scenario and they're not scoring a ton of points, maybe they can just play keep away at times and win some low scoring games because of the way the O line can push the pile forward. I think that group's going to be very good and really give them a chance each week.
Indeed, and there's quite a few positives to go through for this team. What would a detractor say? Who, if I were a Virginia skeptic, what would I point to that could hold up this season?
For me, it's the receiver group. I just don't know exactly what they're going to get. I mean, it's not saying it can't be good, but from last year's team, they lose, I think, 6 of their top 7 pass catchers from last season. And that includes, of course, Trell Harris, who was transferred to Oklahoma. Then they lost Cam Ross, who just graduated onto the NFL, and then Jamal Edry, who's dealing with some off the field stuff, who's no longer with the program. And you insert a bunch of transfers and some young guys that you're hoping, if you're the Virginia staff, can become relied on playmakers, and whether that's the transfer from Kent State and Deshaun Martin, or UCLA and Rico Flores, or Cam Courtney, who's been in the program but just hasn't taken that jump from contributor to starter yet in his career. They need some of these guys to take off, or maybe that sophomore class, right? With Dylan Newton Short, a Richmond area kid, or even Josiah Abdullah, who's a highly recruited kid in that class a couple of years ago. Can any of those guys take a step? Isaiah Robinson, another Richmond area recruit. So to me, that's the big question mark with this team.
It seems Prabula can really earn his paycheck here by elevating that group.
Yeah, he's going to have to. I mean, Virginia likes to throw off a play action, so and I'm sure their commitment to the running game will help them some because at times, at least early in the year, my guess is some teams will load the box, especially knowing Prabula's skill set as a runner, and then they've got Virginia's got the big depth at running back with Peyton Lewis, a transfer in from Tennessee, Jaquel Middlebrook in from Middle Tennessee, Xavier Brown is back, Solomon Beebe's in from UAB, and Zay Davis, another Richmond area product, and he's involved too. Played in the Gator Bowl some. They and the O line, I'm sure teams will gear to stop them running the ball, which should give them some one-on-one matchups. And Prabula's got to make that count when he has those one-on-ones. To get the receivers involved and give them some confidence. Dakota Twitty, the tight end, is also going to have to step up. I think he's got to play a big part in the passing game, and that should help them too. But no doubt, Matt, Prabula's got to make sure these receivers get right.
And maybe that was another part of Elliott's motivation to name a QB1. These guys got to get on the same page like now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you have to. I mean, if you don't have some kind of chemistry, and that's something I talked a little bit about with Prabula too. Is like he's got to know where Deshaun Martin likes to catch the football. He's a down the field threat, but I have to know what side what arm side does he like it on? Where's his speed? Do I have to overthrow him to get the ball? Do I have to overthrow it to get it to him? Basically, same thing with. The possession receiver Flores, right? Are you gonna have certain routes that he's more comfortable with than others in situations that Prabula can look for him? Cam Courtney too, and Twitty also. So I think that's an absolutely critical part of this and stuff they're still working through this summer before training camp begins next week.
No doubt. And when they get in the conference play here, they're gonna have to beat some pretty good teams. And Miami obviously went to the national championship game last year. Surely they'll reload and be back. Who are some other teams Virginia should be wary of here?
Yeah, I think for them the toughest game on their schedule is at SMU. At least when you look on paper in July. SMU, right? No team in the league has won more ACC games in the last 2 years since SMU joined the league than SMU. They've got a third-year starting quarterback back in Kevin Jennings, and him and Rhett Lashley have worked together. The coach there for 3 years. Lashley's the play caller too, so there's some really good chemistry continuity there. They're always pretty good at getting to the quarterback. So I think SMU is certainly a team to watch, and then you put SMU, Virginia. You probably throw Louisville in there based on their defense, running game, because the star running back Isaac Brown's back. But I really like their defense, led by Clev Lubin, who can get to the quarterback, and they got 3 really good linebackers, led by Stanquan Clark. You go across the league also. Maybe you throw Georgia Tech in there. I think they're going to be better than people think. The 2 running backs, man, Justice Haynes, a transfer in from Michigan, who'd been at Alabama. And then you go down the list with Malachi Hosley, a transfer from Penn, a kid Virginia actually recruited, Matt, a couple of transfer cycles ago. He's turned out to be a great player for Georgia Tech. UVA just missed out on him. But he turned out to be a really good player for Georgia Tech, and those two will be a formidable 1-2 punch. Might be the best duo, not only in the ACC, but one of the best in the country. So I would say that group is perhaps the contenders, and maybe Clemson if Clemson bounces back. But that's a huge story in the league. Clemson, what Clemson does, Matt. I mean, everybody's looking at Dabo Swinney and that program and thinking, is this the year you get a vintage Clemson team? Or are you going to get a surprise out of Clemson? And is Dabo going to right the ship?
Indeed, it seems like there's some room for some positive regression for Clemson. They had those, I think, 3 losses by like 11 points last year, 2 of them on the last play of the game. It seems like they're due to get some bounces to go their way, but, just because someone's due doesn't mean it's going to happen. Yeah,
for sure. They got a tough opener, right? They play LSU down in Baton Rouge. But when I look at Clemson, like outside of that game, I think they have Miami. They should be they should be a favorite really throughout the rest of their schedule, and that I think bodes well for them. And I think there's some probably a group of hungry players there. Like last year, they had a lot of NFL talent, but when it went south, it went pretty far south, right? A lot of those guys ended up still being first, second, third round picks, but for whatever reason, it didn't mesh. Now you got a different group in. Christopher Vizina is going to be the quarterback probably at least to start the year. But for me, I look at like Will Helt on defense, the D end, and then what they have at running back with Chris Johnson coming in from SMU as a transfer and pairing him with Gideon Davidson, who's out of Lynchburg area. Played at Liberty Christian Academy. I think they've got a shot to be much better. And the schedule has room for it too.
Makes sense. And I think a really big wild card here is Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Even if they don't live up to expectations, you know they're going to be motivated to beat Virginia. So even if Virginia Tech's having a down year, they're not really a free space for Virginia, unfortunately, really ever.
No. Especially I know last year went Virginia's way, but really the rivalry over the last 2.5 decades has been dominated by the Hokies, and
Dominated.
with Franklin there, right? There's recruiting things at stake, and when those two teams are going to play in late November, right? Both Tony has kind of established himself in the state, I would say at this point. I mean, look at their current recruiting class at UVA with all the kids from Verina and really clean it up in Richmond. They've down to the beach, right? Their quarterback commit is from Oscar Smith. So Lonnie Andrews. So I think Virginia's doing a really good job in state, but James Franklin's going to be trying to nip, kind of nip at the heels there and catch UVA because he always recruited Virginia well, even when he was at Penn State, and of course he dipped into the state when he was at Vanderbilt as a head coach, and of course recruited Virginia when he was an assistant at Maryland. So I think there's some definitely some recruiting bragging rights at stake when they play in late November. I think the Virginia Tech's back half of their schedule is just brutal on paper, at least now, right? I mean, it's at Clemson, at SMU. They get a breather with Stanford, and then it's at Miami and home against UVA to close the year. That's brutal to me. That's James Franklin's probably saying you got to win a bunch early because it could be tough late.
No doubt. Well, Greg, really appreciate you making time for us today. Before I let you go, I need to get a prediction from you. What's UVA's record going to be this year? Do we see them in a bowl game or maybe in the CFP?
Yeah, I think they're going to be in contention, Matt. I picked them third in the league behind Miami and SMU. And I look at that game in October down in Dallas between UVA and SMU as one of the pivotal games in the ACC title race this season.
All right. Well, we'll looking forward to this season, especially that October game in Dallas. Sounds like the season could swing one way or the other depending on the outcome of that game. Appreciate you making time for us today, Greg. You take care, and we'll talk soon enough. All right, welcome back. We are going to take it home. I'm joined once again by Savannah Rieger and Zach Joachim. We'll take it home with some quick hits on trending topics. We're still in the dog days of summer here. Top story of the day is Evander Kane going.
No, it's Patrick Kane.
It's Patrick Kane. Why did I think Evander? Why did I say Evander Kane?
I thought you were going to say Evander Holyfield. And I was
Evander Kane also exists in the world of hockey, but this would not be as big of news as I guess Patrick Kane would be.
All right. I got my Canes mixed up. Patrick Kane is going back to the Blackhawks. Savannah, our hockey expert, thoughts?
Like it. It's feeling like 2015 all over again. I feel like a freshman in high school, if that ages any of our audience here. You know, but I like it. Patrick Kane is obviously very well known for the Blackhawks, one of the best players from the United States to ever play hockey. And it's a good move. I think the Blackhawks need some of that. They need some leadership. They've been such a young team for the last few years. And, you know, Patrick Kane didn't have a bad season with the Red Wings these last years. So I think it's a good move. And I think that leadership and that veteran experience is going to help Chicago out here in the 2026-27 season.
We're 2 weeks away from, do you know, Zach?
Media Day.
Close.
What am I missing?
The NFL season, my friend.
Yes.
Hall of Fame game kicks
All
off
right.
in Canton, Ohio. We got the Cardinals and the Panthers. Teams are reporting to training camp. What are you most eagerly watching as the drama unfolds here?
I take exception to saying the NFL season starts with the Hall of Fame game, though I understand why. That's fair, but it is very much a glorified scrimmage, you know.
Just like all the preseason games are.
The Hall of Fame game is the extreme example.
When the final whistle blew after the World Cup, the NFL season started.
Yeah. I was pretty pumped when that final whistle blew in the World Cup because I knew we were coming home here.
Yeah.
You know, I can't wait to see if Jacoby Brissett continues to hold out on the Arizona Cardinals. What does he do? What is going on with this organization?
It was a really funny holdout.
Carson Beck signed his deal.
Hey, they got one.
They got a quarterback.
Who else do they have? Gardner Minshew, right?
Coming off the ACL? Yeah.
Is it Minshew? Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's Minshew.
They got two quarterbacks.
All right. One coming off the ACL late in the year. But hey, Mahomes is back apparently, so why
George
can't
Kittle?
Gardner Minshew be that guy too?
Yeah, George Kittle might be ready for Week 1, which is wild on the recovery timeline from his injury. Superhuman, yeah.
He was limping around in those videos. I don't know why we're pretending he's okay.
I'm
Rams fan Matt Kiwi.
Objective observer.
Matt, we're both, and Savannah plays fantasy football as well, but we're all like, that's where I'm at this time of year, right? Like, as I'm starting to look at when I was on the flights to and from Denver. Oh, hey, Harvey. I got a USA Today like fantasy football magazine because I needed something to read on the plane, and so I think that's where a lot of fans of the game go at this point in like late July as you get into early August, is in like fantasy football season prep and starting to look at draft boards and average draft position and maybe do a mock draft here and there. So that's where I'm at, and I've been enjoying that a great deal and starting to evaluate, players who change teams. What's Mike Evans going to look like in San Francisco is one example that comes to mind. Offensive coordinators in new spots. What are the Chargers going to look like under Mike McDaniel? I'm really excited about that. Very big on Amari and Hampton and reaching on him earlier in the drafts because I feel like he's primed for a huge season. And so some of that stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I think an underrated change of scenery, if you will, I guess, hearkening back to the Cardinals. Drew Petzing becoming the Lions offensive coordinator. I think that one flew under the radar because he did come from the Cardinals. But if you remember, he made Trey McBride and Michael Wilson simultaneously both look like prime Gronkowski and prime Megatron in the same season.
Jacoby Brissett was a very startable fantasy quarterback
with Jacoby Brissett throwing the football. So I am interested to see what the Lions offense looks like with him calling plays.
Sam Laporta, I think exciting tight end sleeper to that point, right? Who's had a couple down years, right? Filled with injuries, like after the huge season that he had to start his NFL career, but feel like after with Petzing's utilization of McBride and that Cardinals offense last year, you could see something similar with Laporta in Detroit this year. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of NFL fans, your minds are starting to look at. You're trying to get a handle on the players and the coaches who change scenery and what the major differences are going to be relative to last season.
I'm really excited to beat Zach and Matt in picks again this year for the third year in a row. I'm already I'm already thinking about my trophy.
Be that as it may, the Red Sox are red hot, Zach. You're Red Sox.
Yeah, we are. All right. So at a certain point in this season, I was a little checked out, as I think all Red Sox fans were, because we were bad. And now all of a sudden they're the best team in baseball. 15 wins in a row, has tied the franchise record from 1946. That's as of this afternoon. That could have obviously changed by the time this publishes. Wilson Contreras has been phenomenal. I'm going to pull up stats here for a second. But Sonny Gray has led a resurgent pitching staff. He's 11-1 with a 2.54 ERA, which is incredibly impressive after we lost Ace Garrett Crochet earlier in the year for the pitching staff holistically to step up. Peyton Tolley, another one of those guys who's really stepped up on the mounds. Contreras is hitting 293 with 22 bombs, 66 RBIs. I love Cedon Rafaela, who's been a really fun player to watch over the last few years. He leads the Red Sox in hits with 102 and has been outstanding defensively. In the outfield, Jarren Duran's got 14 stolen bases. Ranger Suarez has struck out 97 hitters, and Aroldis Chapman has been absolutely lights out with 22 saves and a 1.99 ERA in the back end of the bullpen. So they've stepped up to. I think everyone knew going into the year and earlier in the season that this team had the potential to be good offensively and could hit, but it was always early in the year. I think it looked like the pitching and defense was terrible for the Red Sox, and that's why they were in the doldrums. But they figured those things out. Some young pitchers have really stepped up. There's another name that I'm forgetting here. I think it's Jake Bratton, who's been really good in the rotation as well. And so you've had a bunch of young arms step up in the defense. Romy Gonzalez is another one of those big defensive pieces who's been phenomenal, has turned a quarter, and all of a sudden this is the hottest team in baseball, and they're in a playoff position.
Hard pivot here. World Cup is done. Thoughts on that last game and World Cup as a whole?
World Cup finals can be super cagey and not entertaining. And we've seen that a few times over the years, right? Like I think about Germany, Argentina. What was that, 2010? I want to say when Mari Götze scored the winner in extra time, and that was really the only moment from this match. And this Spain-Argentina final really reminded me of that, with Ferran Torres getting the winner in the second period of extra time.
Some good goalkeeping.
Some very good goalkeeping from Emi Martinez, former Arsenal player, by the way, I would throw out there. Mikel Merino, Martin Zubamendi, David Raya for Spain are all Arsenal players. Mikel Merino, who had a really key role in this run for Spain. And I think that, like we talked earlier in the World Cup about, I was saying, and a lot of people were saying that it looked like nobody could beat France. And they certainly, I think, had the best individual brilliance of this tournament. Lionel Messi for Argentina, another name that obviously comes to mind, Erling Haaland, and all the Haaland memes and social media content has been really fun, but he was phenomenal for Norway. But I think Spain proved that in a tournament setting, at the end of the day, team cohesion and organization is more important than individual brilliance. And don't get me wrong, Spain has some brilliant individual players, but I think they were the most cohesive unit and collective as a team throughout this whole tournament. And football won. Like, that was what so many people were saying after the final. Like, it would have been, there's no offense to Argentina, it would have been a shame if they won that match or won it on PKs, because Spain was so far and away the better team. I think Argentina didn't have a shot on target until extra time, right? And Enzo Fernandez absolutely deserved that sending off. The first yellow card was for dissent, and the second one was for a really bad tackle on Kubarsi.
I think the only person who thinks he should not have been sent off is him.
Or Argentinian fans in general, perhaps, but maybe a Chelsea fan or two in there. That's the Arsenal fan in me taking a dig. Enzo Fernandez is a phenomenal player, but absolutely deserved to be sent off there. And what did Spain end up with? Like 19 shots, 11 on target. And I think Argentina had 2 or 3 shots and maybe 1 on target. And so Spain absolutely deserved to win that match. Shout out to Nico Williams for the assist on the Ferran Torres goal. Like, it was a great finish from Torres, but it's Williams who really makes that goal, being able to head that back into a shooting position for Torres as he's, falling out of play against the momentum of his body. Spain absolutely deserved to win that game, and they were the best team holistically all tournament, even though France probably had some of the more individual brilliance. England and France in the third place game was probably the funnest game of the tournament, or it's certainly up there. As you said in our group chat, Matt, it looked like France was out until midnight the night before celebrating and did not turn up for that first half.
No, I said I think they were out at 11.
11, okay.
If you're not familiar with the club, if try to remember back to the viral Florida Panthers Stanley Cup celebration videos that surfaced. I think it was a Kachuk brother getting carried out of the club.
Always is.
Singing Pink Pony Club by
Thank you, Matthew Kachuk.
Yeah. That was it. That was at 11, the Club 11 in Miami. So
I missed the joke. I apologize. I thought you just meant the time.
no worries.
England France did have the feel of like an NBA All-Star game, which like I think is exactly the comparison that the commentators used. Because nobody cares that much about the third place game. France did not turn up for the first half, and England was phenomenal. Bukayo Saka hat trick, by the way, another Arsenal plug that I'll put in there. If he'd been healthy for this whole tournament, it might have turned out differently for England, but he obviously hasn't been. And then France got a talking to at halftime and decided that they didn't want to get boat raced on a national stage like that, and they played well in the second half, and so you ended up with a 10-goal thriller with Jude Bellingham finishing it off deservedly because he was the best player for England all tournament and one of the best players in the World Cup. So that was at least really entertaining, even though the 10 goals were a product of both teams not really wanting to defend with that much vigor in a relatively meaningless third place game. But I thought it was a wonderful World Cup holistically. I know that a lot of people have gripes about the hydration breaks, the commercialization of it. All of that is true. And we don't have to get into all of that here because we could do a whole separate podcast on it. But I love the fact that it was expanded. And so you had, a team like Cabo Verde able to do what they did and inspire a lot of people with a tiny nation, throwing punches with some of the best in the world. And the stadiums were beautiful and it was a great experience holistically.
I think that Cape Verde game really threw us off the scent of Spain.
Yeah.
Because didn't they draw with Spain right out of the chute?
They did.
Yeah, and so I think after that I just didn't acknowledge Spain as a team that could win.
I think that was that a 0-0 draw? I want to say it was the Spain Cabo Verde match. But I think that's maybe a testament to the style that Spain played throughout this tournament, which was very controlled, right? Possession-wise, they didn't take a whole lot of risks defensively. And again, I think the collective cohesion and understanding of how you want to play as a team overcame the individual brilliance from a team like France and a team like Argentina at the end of the day.
Well said. Well, guys, do we have any loose ends we need to tie up, or shall we hit the road?
Does anyone want to sing Pink Pony Club?
No.
Sounds like you do.
I feel like we've started a bit with singing Country Roads at the end of the podcast. I don't know the words to...
started the bit.
Yeah. I don't know the words to Pink Pony Club well enough, though. Savannah, can you start it for me?
No, I'm not singing on the podcast.
Okay. Well, I don't have it right in front of me.
You can't make me.
Let's maybe we'll take a week to study up on our lyrics.
Country roads, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country roads.
Thanks for tuning in to the RTD Sports Podcast. Be sure to check back next week for another new episode. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And Richmond.com. Goodbye, everybody.